All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to take the notoriously dense procedural rules of Chapter 3 and turn them into a fascinating, chronological story about the complete life cycle of a company's share. If you've ever wondered how the mechanics of raising capital actually work behind the scenes of your favorite companies, and more importantly, how it impacts you as an investor, well, you are in the exact right place.
Here's our agenda for today. We'll be looking at types of share capital, how companies issue shares, allotment and share certificates, calls and forfeiture, and finally, transfer versus transmission.
Section 1. Types of share capital. The birth of capital.
Let's start at the very beginning. Think of authorized capital as a giant bucket. It sets the absolute legal ceiling on how much funding a company is allowed to hold. And this limit isn't just some casual, back-of-the-napkin estimate. It is strictly laid out in the company's foundational document, the Memorandum of Association. So why does this matter? Well, it protects early investors from having their ownership endlessly diluted. The company literally cannot raise a single penny beyond this authorized limit without formally asking shareholders to alter that founding document.
Now imagine this whole process as a massive funnel. A company rarely asks for all of its authorized capital at once. First, it issues a portion. That's the issued capital offered to the public at the top of the funnel. But the public has to actually want it, right? The shares the public ultimately applies for become the subscribed capital. From there, the company calls for the money, asking shareholders to pay a specific balance. That's the called-up capital. And finally, at the very bottom of the funnel, we strike gold, paid-up capital. This is the actual cash that successfully clears and enters the company's bank accounts.
Section 2. How companies issue shares. Going to market.
So, picture this. You want to buy into that hot news startup. They will typically offer shares to the public for the very first time through an initial public offer, or IPO, which happens at major financial hubs. But the journey doesn't just stop there. If a company is already listed, it's out there operating successfully, and then decides it needs to raise even more capital later on, they'll launch a further public offer, or FPO. But how do they even figure out what to charge you for these shares in the first place?
When going to market, a company has a critical choice to make about pricing. Under the fixed price issue method, the company knows exactly what it wants. It sticks a definitive price tag on its shares right there in the prospectus. You either buy it or you don't. But what if they aren't entirely sure what the market is willing to pay? That's where the book-building method comes into play. In this scenario, the company provides a price band, a floor and a cap, and basically asks investors to bid. It's all about price discovery. It lets the market dictate the true value, which results in a final cutoff price based on actual real-world demand.
But hey, raising capital isn't exclusively about wooing the general public. Companies often like to reward their inner circle. They might offer a rights issue, which gives existing shareholders the VIP first opportunity to buy new shares and maintain their current percentage of ownership. Even better, they can issue bonus shares. These are fully paid shares given completely free of cost out of accumulated profits. Pretty nice, right? For their workforce, they use schemes like the Employee Stock Option Scheme, or ESOS, and the Employee Stock Purchase Scheme, or ESPS. This gives loyal employees the right to buy shares, usually at a solid discount. And finally, if a company wants to raise funds quickly without the headache of a massive public campaign, they can use a private placement. This means offering securities directly to a highly exclusive group of no more than 200 select investors.
Section 3. Allotment and share certificates. Making it official.
So, you've applied and sent in your money, but getting shares isn't actually automatic. The formal procedure of allotment requires some strict legal steps. Once your application is in, the board of directors, or a designated allotment committee, must explicitly convene and approve the distribution. It's basically a vetting process. Once the board signs off, you'll receive a letter of allotment confirming you've officially made the cut. Didn't make it? Well, you'll get a letter of regret and your money returned.
Now, an allotment letter is great news, for sure. But the share certificate, that is your true prize. As the registered document issued by the company under its common seal, it serves as the definitive, indisputable legal proof of your title to those shares. Whether your shares are partly paid or fully paid up, this certificate is the ultimate physical evidence that you actually own a piece of that enterprise.
Section 4. Calls and forfeiture. The follow-up.
Which brings us to a pretty dramatic question. What exactly happens if a company asks for the remaining balance on your partly paid shares? And, well, you simply cannot pay.
Let's walk through this timeline. On day 1, the company makes a call, officially demanding that unpaid money. By law, they have to give you at least 14 days to pay up. If that clock runs out and you fail to pay, the final step is severe, forfeiture.
Think of it like having your car repossessed, but honestly worse. The company forcefully takes back your shares, completely cancels your membership, and here's the absolute kicker, they keep all the money you've already paid. Alternatively, a shareholder can voluntarily surrender their shares to the company, though the financial loss is largely exactly the same.
Section 5. Transfer versus transmission. Moving on. To wrap up the life cycle of our share, the crucial point to lock down for your own investing knowledge is the stark legal difference between moving shares voluntarily versus involuntarily. A transfer of shares is entirely your choice. As a transferor, you actively decide to sell your shares for a profit or just hand them over as a gift. Transmission, on the other hand, is forced. It happens involuntarily through the operation of law. If a shareholder passes away, becomes insolvent, or is deemed legally insane, the law steps in and dictates that the shares are automatically transmitted to a legal heir or an official representative.
So, as we conclude this explainer, I really want you to ask yourself, if the complex machinery of issuing, calling, and transferring capital so rigidly defines a business's absolute potential, are you paying enough attention to the actual mechanics behind your own investments? By understanding how authorized capital protects you, the nuanced difference between book building and fixed pricing, and the incredibly strict penalties of forfeiture, you gain a massive advantage in seeing how the corporate world truly operates. Keep diving into these details, keep questioning the mechanics, and I will see you in our next explainer.